My name is Claire and I live in a quiet, sun-drenched neighborhood near the edge of Sacramento. The streets here are lined with tired trees and faded picket fences. There's nothing extraordinary about it, nothing that would catch your eye in a passing glance, but to me, it's the setting of everything I've ever known: childhood, first love, heartbreak, marriage, motherhood, betrayal, and a long, winding path to rediscovering myself. Growing up, I was the dependable daughter, the one who always cleaned her room, helped her mother with groceries, and never broke the rules. My life was a list of expectations, checked one by one. I didn't mind. I found safety and order in being needed. I met James when I was 22. He was tall, polite, with a voice that always seemed on the verge of laughter. He came into the cafe I worked at every Thursday morning, ordered a black coffee and blueberry muffin, and left a generous tip without saying much more than a soft "thank you." One morning, I found a note on the napkin that said, "You have the kindest eyes I've ever seen." It was signed simply J. That was the start. We were married 2 years later in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. My mother cried, my father looked proud. I wore a lace gown that we found on sale and did my own hair. It wasn't grand, but it was full of love. Or so I thought. The early years were good quiet mornings, long walks, inside jokes whispered in the dark. James was kind, dependable, and supportive of my dream to open a small bakery downtown. He built shelves for the shop, painted walls late into the night, and told everyone who would listen how proud he was of me. We had 2 children, Olivia and Max. They became my entire world, but slowly, something in James shifted. It was subtle at first: missed dinners, more time at the office, a new passcode on his phone. I noticed, of course. How could I not? But I told myself he was tired. That he was just adjusting to the pressures of work and family. The truth hit me one rainy afternoon when I found an earring under the passenger seat of his car, one that didn't belong to me. I held it in my hand, numb, staring at its tiny jeweled surface. That night, I asked him. He didn't deny it. "It just happened," he said. I didn't mean for it to. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I sat there, shaking, listening to the man I loved confess to betraying me. The next days were a blur of hushed arguments, sleepless nights, and forcing smiles in front of the kids. We tried to patch things up: marriage counseling, weekend getaways, promises that things would change. And for a while, they did. But trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. I became someone I didn't recognize: anxious, doubtful, constantly checking his phone, his tone, his gaze. Then, something inside me broke. I was walking Olivia to school when she looked up and said, "Mommy, you never laugh anymore." That night, I packed a bag and moved in with my sister. It wasn't easy. I cried every night for weeks. The bakery suffered. The kids asked difficult questions. But slowly, I began to breathe again. I painted my bedroom a soft green, started attending a local writing group, and began journaling every morning. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I sat on a park bench near the lake, watching the sun melt into the water. An older woman sat next to me and said, without preamble, "You look like someone who's trying to hold 100 things in your heart at once." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Her name was Esther, and she became something of a mentor to me. She had lost her husband, battled breast cancer, and raised 3 children alone. But she carried a light in her eyes that told me she had not been defeated. She taught me how to live again. I began to see a therapist. Not for James, not for my children, for me. I uncovered layers of myself I had buried for years. I confronted my fears of inadequacy, my compulsion to be perfect, my fear of being alone. Then came Michael. He was a single father who brought his daughter, Lily, to my bakery every Saturday morning. He was quiet, gentle, always smiling. We exchanged simple hellos, then longer conversations. He told me about losing his wife, about learning to braid Lily's hair, about nights spent wondering if he was enough. We went for coffee, then dinner, then long walks where we spoke about everything and nothing. But I was afraid. I told him I was too broken to love anyone properly. "You're not broken," he said. "You're healing." and healing people love with more depth than anyone else. We took it slow. The kids bonded. Lily adored Olivia, and Max followed Michael around like a shadow. I won't pretend everything was smooth. There were arguments, insecurities, moments of doubt. But there was also laughter, comfort, partnership. Now, years later, I wake up in a house filled with warmth. The bakery thrives. The children are happy. And I am not the same Claire who once sat numb on the kitchen floor holding a stranger's earring. I am stronger. I am softer. I am more myself than I have ever been. And if there's anything I've learned, it's this. Sometimes, the end of one chapter isn't a failure. It's a chance to begin a story even more beautiful than the one you imagined. This is mine. I stood on the porch that early autumn morning, coffee in hand, watching the wind play with the orange leaves tumbling down our quiet street. There was something sacred in the stillness, like life had slowed down just enough for me to catch my breath. 2 years had passed since the letter from Michael. 2 years since I opened wounds I thought had healed, only to discover they had merely scabbed over. Now, life looked different. Liam came into our lives like a gentle tide, steady, kind, and patient. He didn't demand to be a part of our story. He simply waited at the edges, like the riverbank, letting us decide when we were ready to flow toward him. He never tried to replace anyone. Not Michael. Not the version of myself I once grieved. Liam made space for me, for my pain, for my daughter's confusion, for the weight of years. Sophie was 9 now, wise beyond her years. She had questions about her father. Quiet hours when Sophie sleeps and Liam reads beside me, I write. Not just in my journal, but for others too, women who've lost and waited and questioned their worth. Women who have faced the darkness of abandonment and clawed their way back toward light. I tell them, you are not what was done to you. You are who you became in spite of it. Because I am Claire. A woman who was left. Who doubted. Who grieved. Who forgave. And who, somehow, found her way back to love. And if I've learned anything, it's this. The river always knows the way. Even when you don't.